Hello everyone, I'm Wendell Jones and welcome to this special edition of our program. And on our program we talk about national issues, but in particular, as you know, every weekend we talk about the 50th anniversary of Nygard International, and we congratulate Peter Nygard, who has been in the fashion business for 50 years, and throughout the world they are celebrating Nygard International and what he has done in fashion, not only in the United States or Canada, in Asia, indeed around the world. And he's done some wonderful things in the Bahamas too, and has been involved in Bahamian entertainment because he had a whole lot of friends who were in the entertainment business, and still are, many of them. And today on our program we have two gentlemen here who are going to pay tribute to Peter Nygard and what he has done in the Bahamas and around the world, and they're going to tell us about themselves and what they have done in the entertainment business. And Bianca, it's good to see you.
It's
Bianca
so good
Nygard.
to be here again, thank you.
You have brought wonderful guests again to us.
Yes, really excited to have them on the show.
Very good. And we have the Bahamian legend, Bahamian icon, John Berkeley Peanuts Taylor. And Peanuts Taylor, it's good to see you.
Yeah, I'm happy to see you, man.
Yes.
You're so busy I can't catch up with you.
Isn't that something? And you have been hiding from us apparently. You haven't been performing for a little while, eh?
No.
You are really retired, eh?
Well, you have to retire sometime, right?
Yes. I'm not going to ask you to tell how old you are because you've been forever young, haven't you?
Well, I hope so.
You have these beautiful shirts that you always wear, and they give you that Caribbean look at all times, eh?
Yeah, well, you have to be, if you're from the Caribbean, you got to be dressed like a Caribbean person.
You have performed around the world, haven't you?
Yes. All over Canada, all over Europe, everywhere. Hawaii, everywhere. I can't think of anywhere.
Anywhere where you haven't performed?
No.
And you did a tremendous performance in Cuba one time ago.
Yes.
That was one of the highlights of your career, eh?
Yeah, well, I go to Cuba. I went to Cuba with Paul Mayers. He took me to Cuba in 1958.
1958?
Yeah.
Wow.
He took me there at the Tropicana Club in Havana, Cuba.
Josiah Kinlock, you are also a percussionist, I understand. How did you get started in the business?
Well, it started with this gentleman right here, Mr. Peanuts Taylor. I was a waiter around 16, and I was working at the drum beat club. After the show, after the second show, I was responsible for removing Peanuts drums off the stage to the side of the drum. And I had made friends with Bunny the drummer, and he said, "Come on, man." And one night, Peanuts got tired of me bling bling, and he said, "Let me show you a rhythm." And he showed me that rhythm, and that rhythm I was able to lock in with the band at night. And after that, it became in my soul. You know, I got to like it, and from that point on, I had interest in drums, and I became a percussionist. Later on in life, it led to me being a percussionist.
So you were playing Peanuts drums. And you then started playing around the world?
Well,
or you played for drum beat for a little while?
No, after, I think about a year later, I moved to New York.
Oh, you moved to New York?
Right, and when I moved to New York, I had I started working at a club as a bartender, and we had bands. So I started picking up and learning things there, and it just grew. And I met, I think, Tony McKay, and I started doing some work with him. And later on, one of the gentlemen, Junior Marvin from Bob Marley's band, walked in the club one night and asked for a job as a Jimi Hendrix impersonator. And we hired him. And later on, he became the lead guitarist of Bob Marley and the Wailers, and that was my connection with Bob.
I see.
But, go ahead.
Bianca, how did you get in touch with Mr. Kinloch? And I know Peanuts but how did you find them?
How do I find them? You know, it's just been such a blessing that I could be able to be surrounded by such incredible people like this. So Peanuts Taylor, I can't remember ever not knowing him, and it's always been such a privilege. And I was talking with Josiah Kinloch, because he's actually been out to Nygard Key before also, and he told me this amazing story of his travels to Cuba and to Germany and around the world. And when we started talking about Peanuts, then he said that was really who inspired him to get into this percussion. And I just think that it is incredible that you just need to be at the right place at the right time and get somebody with such great skill to actually take the time. Peanuts saw him practicing on his drums and heard his beat and said, hey, let me show you a little something. And he showed him this beat, and and it inspired him to move on. And I also felt like the connection between Cuba was really incredible too, how around the world they just embrace the Bahamians with such open arms and such passion, and they get so excited. So I've seen some wonderful things from that I wanted to share on the show.
Absolutely, very, very good. And Peanuts, you, I'm sure, got to know Peter Nygard when he came to the Bahamas 40-something years ago, eh?
Yeah.
45 years ago, I think
right.
it was. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's an exciting person.
Yes. And I'm sure he attended many of your performances at, at the drum beat.
I attended most of his parties. You ever been to any of his parties yet?
No.
He used to have some fabulous parties, man.
Oh, yeah? Okay. And you performed at some of those?
Yeah, I performed there. And I went there as a guest, took a lot of people there with me. He is very hospitable.
Yes.
That's one thing about Peter.
People from around the world. You
Yeah.
had the celebrities from around the world who visited Nygard Key, including President Bush, eh?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you, Kinloch, would have met some of them, eh?
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to meet Mr. Nygard on many occasions. I worked there with the Falcons. I was also a member of the Falcons group.
Okay.
Falcon Watson, and we've played there many times. But Mr. Nygard inspired me in terms of being a fashion designer and what he has done. Came to this country, fell in love with the place, and has actually blended in. He's like a Bahamian, and he's done many things. One of the things that inspired me is his fashion, because this is a JCC. This is Josiah's Conscious Clothing. This is
what do you call that?
A JCC.
JCC.
Josiah's Conscious Clothing.
Okay.
And I started designing clothes also.
This look like
Crocus bag.
a crocus sack. Eh?
Yeah, this is from the crocus sack collection.
Where do you find a crocus sack these days?
Well, you can find them at various home fabric fashion stores that they sell them in balls, and I just took the African and crocus back and tried to keep it as Caribbean, or Caribbean and African are merged, and tried to combine the two, which take us back to our past. Remember, we came from flower bag and crocus bag, and try to combine the two. The next piece I might add some flower bag to it, but give it a fashion look, a high fashion look with the old materials.
Yeah. So who sold this for you?
This was sold by an old lady in Cuba.
In Cuba?
In Cuba, yeah. I got all my tailoring done in Cuba. It's a little more affordable.
I see. And I see you have JCC on the pocket here?
Yes, that's Josiah's Conscious Clothing. I tried to design conscious clothing to make young men look conscious, like we used to look back in the days. Because now the fashion designers are creating things to make young men look ugly. And Mr. Nygard is doing beautiful things for women, and we need somebody to start looking at the men.
So it's a Caribbean look, eh?
It's a Caribbean look. It's a world look.
It's a what?
World look.
A
'Cause
world
Caribbean,
look.
Caribbean and African people are worldwide.
Yes, yes, yes.
The originators of this, you know.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So, Peanuts, you've done many shows, and you did one in New York.
Oh, yes.
I've Got a Secret.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I started in New York. I did the limbo when it first started out. I went to New York and did it with Arla and Francis. And Dave Galway saw me do it. And so I did his show. And then later, he came along, later, must have been 10, 20 years, and said he wanted me to come on and be his guest on his show. So that's what I did. But I went all over.
All over the eastern
United-
seaboard of the
everywhere,
United States,
everywhere.
in Boston and New York.
Went to Hawaii. I brought the Gibson Convention here from Hawaii. We competed with about 7 countries, and we won the competition, and they came here to the Bahamas the next trip. Big convention, very big.
Yes. Bianca, you brought some videos for us to see as well, eh?
Yes, this is actually a video clip from 1965. It is Peanuts on the show in his late 20s.
In his late 20s?
Yes, performing.
In 1965?
That's right.
Okay. You know, Peter don't like to tell, Peter, he doesn't like to tell people his age.
We're guessing it, figuring it out now.
So we're going to figure it out anyhow. All right, so let's take a look at a piece of this video from I've Got a Secret.
Make yourself comfortable there. And as you sit down there, sir, would you tell us your name and where you're from?
My name is Peanuts Taylor. I'm from Nassau, Bahamas.
Well, panel, as you saw by the fact that an instrument was carried in there, Mr. Taylor is a musician. To be a little more specific, he is a virtuoso on the conga drum. And in fact, he's going to perform for us a little bit later. But before we get to that, this gentleman has a secret in connection with this particular drum that I think is quite amazing. So if you'll whisper it to me, Mr. Taylor, we'll show it to the audience. Quite a trick indeed. The panel, the clue to Mr. Taylor's secret concerns something he can do, and we'll start the game this time with Henry Morgan.
Is it, Mr. Taylor, another way you have of being able to play the drum?
Oh,
No.
yes and no. Mostly no, I'd say.
A little more no than yes.
Yeah.
You said the secret had to do with the drum, and it has to do with his playing of it. All right. Then does it have to do with the speed at which you can play it?
No, there's a connection, but it's irrelevant to the secret.
Yeah, there's a connection with that, and there's a connection. See, I was thinking that, you know, like he did it with his toes or something like that, and very rapidly. Is it another part of your body that you use?
No.
Another part than what?
Elbows, knees, nose, I don't know.
Actually, all conga drummers do use their elbows a little bit. But anyway, there is $20 down, 60 to go, and Betsy.
Mr. Taylor, is this indigenous of the islands? Do the people do this down there?
No.
Mostly? Is this something you dreamed up yourself?
Yes.
Is it the position in which you play the drum? Your physical position?
No.
You don't do it limbo or anything like that. Has it to do with what the drum is made of?
No.
There goes half the money. Bill Cullen.
Well, do you do something with the drum, Mr. Taylor, other than beat a tempo on it? Something in addition to a tempo?
I would have to say yes, wouldn't you, Peanut?
Yes.
Do you possibly play the melody line?
Yes. Very good indeed, Bill. The story is that Peanuts Taylor owns a nightclub in Nassau called, appropriately enough, the Drum Beat. And when a customer there has a request, he doesn't ask the piano player, he usually asks Mr. Taylor, because Peanuts has the remarkable ability, as you've already been told by Bill here, to play the melodies of songs using only this conga drum. So I'll set it up here for you, Peanut, so you can add it to your other drums out there. Help yourself to the middle of our stage. The best way, of course, for Peanuts to show you what he can do is by doing it. And he has a special arrangement for us worked out. At first, he just plays the regular conga drums, and then it gets very tricky along the middle. Here is Peanuts Taylor. We'll get back in just a moment. We pause now for this important message.